Steve, let's dive right in. So when we open up your book, Decide, you reference psychology research that, quote, we can divide all sources of human motivation into two categories, to move towards gain or prevent pain. So break this down for us. Tell us why this idea is significant to our productivity efforts.
Yeah, great. So prevent pain tasks and gain tasks produce significantly different results. Gain tasks produce 90% or more of the results we get in our lives. Prevent pain tasks produce 10% or less of the results we get in our lives. Gain tasks are things like your goals, right? Getting an MBA, learning a new language, getting a professional certification, or writing a book. Prevent pain tasks are tasks that really what we're trying to prevent is the pain of the consequences of not doing them, like taking out the trash. We don't really get results from that. We only get results if we don't do it. We prevent the smell in our garage and the animals trying to get into our garage. We just prevent the pain of not doing it. So when you look at the difference between the results these two categories produce, they produce significantly different results.
Okay, so it seems that the problem most people face then is that they're driven more by the second category that you explained, preventing pain, which obviously isn't going to move them forward towards success. Talk about why that is. Why do people get stuck in preventing pain as their primary motive?
Prevent pain tasks represent survival to your brain. And survival tasks, your brain is a lot more sensitive and it prioritizes survival tasks way over the happiness, joy, and satisfaction that we want to experience in life. We are so focused on the prevent pain tasks on a daily basis, and we don't see it, that we're negative human beings to a fault. I mean, you get 10 compliments today. One negative piece of feedback. We think about the negative piece of feedback all night long. Why? Because negative means danger and danger means survival. And our brain is a lot more sensitive to survival tasks. So your brain, and that creates a lot of traps with regards to why we give so much time and attention to the prevent pain tasks.
Yeah, it's funny. Just before this interview, my assistant who manages my social media sent me a link to somebody's comment on a Facebook group because he was saying something negative. And I was like, man, we get thousands of comments every week and you're pointing out the one negative. I said, just delete it. Like, why draw our attention to the negative one rather than to all the amazing, wonderful, and powerful positive ones that you're not going out of your way to alert me to? So obviously it does seem to be the orientation of our monkey brain. So obviously we want to try to help people get unstuck and start focusing on this idea of gain instead of preventing pain when it comes to what we do day in and day out. So start by giving us a rundown of how to identify this gain task and separate it from what might be the inclination of a preventing pain task.
Okay, good, because they do have different attributes that will help us to identify what the task is. Is it gain or is it prevent pain? Now, one of the traps the brain creates is it's going to be one versus the other. Now, when I say prevent pain tasks produce 10% or less of the results we get, that's if you do them. And that's important. See, your brain will say, well, what'll happen if you don't do them? And then we look at the consequences of not doing it, and they can far outweigh the benefits of our gain tasks. So it's really, how do we do both? I mean, prevent pain tasks only produce great results if you don't do them. When you do them, you don't feel like you get any results at all. So let's go through the attributes of gain tasks so we can identify them and see them more clearly. Gain tasks, like for an MBA, for example, is a task that, one, lacks all kind of urgency. So you could put it off till next year. You could put it off till the following year. As a matter of fact, you could go through your whole career and not get an MBA. Many people do it. So gain tasks, a key attribute is they lack urgency. When we do them, they produce significant results for us. Think about this. When you're 100 years old looking back on your life, you would remember that you got an MBA. You'd remember that you wrote a book, that you learned a new language. There's things we remember for a lifetime. There's things we don't remember 5 minutes after we do them. And one of the key attributes of gain tasks is we remember them for a lot longer. I mean, I hopefully will not remember taking out the trash when I'm 100 years old. And if I did, I wouldn't want to. Another key attribute of gain tasks is we can't delegate them, right? You can't delegate an MBA to somebody else or learning a new language to somebody else. So delegation is a key part of the gain process. You can't I mean, are we even aware that there's a list of things that only we can do in life? Do we keep that list in mind when we start to execute? We can only we can do the gain tasks, and prevent pain tasks, we can delegate them. And at the end of the day, I think the gain tasks are what create the feeling of balance that we all crave. The balance between the movement and the improvement of our lives versus just the maintenance of our lives. And I think that feeling of balance comes when our life gets better.
Okay, so you mentioned delegation. Obviously, this is something everyone has heard that they need to do, but still most people can't seem to get the grasp of this. So what holds people back from properly delegating? And not just what I can assume is the answer, but how to really get themselves over these emotional and psychological barriers to delegation. What do you suggest?
See, there's a big difference between delegation and dumping, and I think that's a lot of where we get caught into the traps of delegation. We delegate for two reasons. You'll save us time, or we'll get better quality. So let's go through kind of the decisions that we have to make when we're considering delegating, but what I think is the real impact of delegation and why it's such a fantastic decision. So when we delegate, a lot of things to think about. Is somebody else more available than you to do the task? Somebody more talented, gifted, and skilled at the task, and can they do better quality, and does quality matter? What's the economic cost to the organization of you doing the task versus somebody else doing the task, right? Important to consider. But the number one thing to consider is what else could you be doing with your time if you weren't doing that task? So let's say you delegate mowing your lawn or your website to another company. Okay, you get time back in your life because of that. Now, if with that time you're going to do other stuff you have to do, or just watch the person you delegated to do it, some people just like to watch people work, then that's a tough decision. But if the reason you're delegating your website to another company, you get a month of time back in your business because you're not doing that. You're spending a lot of money. So this is a tough decision. Well, let's make it an easy decision. If the reason you're doing that is for 1 month, you're going to improve your business. No, you're not going to just do more business. You're going to work on the systems and the processes that drive your business forward, and you're going to get better and faster at what you do. This is an awesome decision. If the opportunity cost of time is we are improving our life, our relationships, and our business, if that's the reason we're spending money, and that's what we're going to do at the time, it's an awesome decision.
So figuring out what to delegate is usually a factor of priority, right? So let's talk about prioritization and the things that we have on our to-do list. Tell us how you suggest we prioritize ourselves and our tasks effectively.
So outside of our brain, there's really two tools we use to help us make decisions: a to-do list and a calendar. And we treat things on a calendar drastically different than the things we put on a to-do list. So let's say I were to say to you, hey, Darren, let's get together Monday night. What's the first thing you would check?
My calendar.
Okay, so now think about this. I know it doesn't sound like a big deal, but you're going to check something before you make a decision. Think about this activity throughout a lifetime. Well, let me check before I decide. Checking before throughout a lifetime. Think of the significance of that activity on the decisions we make. See, a to-do list is for adding to after we make a decision. We don't check a to-do list. So if I were sharing with you this great article that I read in Success Magazine, and you say to me, oh, Steve, I'd love to read that. Can you shoot that over to me? And I'll be like, yeah, I'll send it right over. I just made a decision. I didn't check anything. I would then go to my to-do list and say, send article 2. See, a calendar you check before you make a decision. Now let's play this out. Let's say you say to me, hey, let's get together Monday night. The first thing you would check, you check Monday night, and you might have a conversation like this. Oh, I can't do Monday night. I can do Tuesday, Wednesday, or the following Monday. Now look at what you just did. You defended what it was going to take, the time it was going to take to do what you placed on Monday night. See, putting gain into our lives, Darren, is a 3-step process. It's a process we follow over and over and over again. And the first step is we schedule it. The second step is we defend it. Defend it against what? The prevent pain tasks. See, there's never a moment of your life where there's not a prevent pain task you could be doing. Think about this. You're wearing clothes right now, so you have laundry to do. The trash needs to be taken out. The bills have to be paid as we're talking to each other. Emails are coming in. There's never a time when you're completely finished with prevent pain. If this is true, then this is actually a true and accurate statement. There's no time in life for goals. Wait, think about that. If there's always a prevent pain task you could be doing, then there's no time for goals. But we all have made time for goals. How do we do it? We make time. That's just it. Have you ever heard that expression, make time? What are we trying to communicate about life when we say make time? There's 24 hours in a day, no matter who you are. Are we making time in the basement with the money? When we say make time, what are we trying to express with that, using that language? What we're saying is it's time to schedule it, it's time to defend it, and it's time to neglect maintenance because of it. I don't want to downplay this either. When you're working on a gain task in your life, your prevent pain tasks are piling up. So you're falling behind on the trash and paying the bills and the laundry and email and work. So as you're working on the business hasn't stopped. And there's some anxiety there. There's anxiety that you have to play catch up after the gain task. But if the reason you're playing catch up is you were making the business better, you were making a relationship better, you were working on a personal goal you had that's going to make your life better, this is a good reason to play catch up. So when we talk about prioritizing, let's make this simple. We have a to-do list and we have a calendar. Things that have to get done go on the to-do list because that helps us with speed. That's what to-do lists are for. They're for speed. But the calendar is when we make a conscious decision to schedule, defend, neglect our to-do list, and work on the business, our life, and our relationships. Darren, too many leaders say there's no time to lead the business. And it's true. We have to make time if we want the results that come from gain tasks.
So I've been putting off this question our whole interview. So I want to touch on procrastination, pun intended. So it's something we all do at times, and people, they don't admit they have a real problem with it. So describe the reasoning behind why we procrastinate and what causes it.
Yes, and we all do it, and we will all continue to do it because it serves a very specific purpose, and no one wants to talk about this. See, procrastination, we typically procrastinate tasks that we don't like. Why? Because there's no energy to do a task that you don't like. Now watch where the energy is going to come from. From a psychology perspective, look at the actual psychology behind procrastination. Okay, so I don't like the task, so I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to wait good. And as I get close to the deadline, I start to think about what's going to happen if I don't do it. And then the apology and the embarrassment and repairing the relationship. And then I start to get so close to the deadline that those consequences are a reality. And now I consider those consequences are a lot greater than just doing the task. So now I have this weight, I can weigh one against the other. So now all of a sudden I get scared. So I have fear. Fear releases adrenaline. So procrastination, really, the psychologist, we motivate ourselves by fear. So the fear releases adrenaline. Adrenaline contains painkillers. The painkillers release, and that's what releases the energy. Wait, this is brilliant. It's a brilliant strategy the brain uses to do things it doesn't like to do. So when would we ever stop doing that? Well, here's the problem with procrastination. Let's talk about the downside. There's so many benefits to it. It's like, well, that sounds great, Steve. Why would I not do it? Okay. If we prioritize that way, if that's our pattern for making decisions, deadline, consequences, fear, energy, what tasks will we never do in life? The gain tasks. Learning the piano, learning a new language, getting an MBA, getting a professional certification, writing a book. These tasks don't have a deadline. And there's no consequences that will scare you enough to give you energy to do them. The other problem with procrastination, so if we're procrastinating tasks like taking out the trash, doing the laundry, no big deal, right? I mean, what's the downside? You can do them under pressure. See, the other problem with procrastination is it creates pressure. And quality and pressure don't like each other. So you can run out to the trash. There's no quality in taking out the trash. Nobody says, hey, I took out the trash last night and I did a phenomenal job. Like that would be ridiculous. So it's more of a pass-fail kind of task. Like, did you do it or did you not do it? That you can actually think about something else. The quality is so low, you can think about something else when you're doing it. But then there's the big proposal, Darren. There's the you want to write a book. You want to learn the piano. You have to be present and thinking about it while you're doing it. Well, this is when pressure is not welcome, right? Pressure and quality are not friends. They have an inverse relationship. When pressure goes up, quality with first-time tasks goes down. So even if we can increase the pressure enough, even tasks we're really good at can become difficult. I mean, there's 3 seconds left to go in the football game, and the kicker is going to decide who wins this football game. Just before the kicker goes to kick the game-winning field goal, what's the coach on the other team do?
Take a timeout.
Timeout. Why? To ice the kicker, right? To increase the pressure. They had to make a rule in the NFL that you could only call one timeout before a kick because coaches were calling all their timeouts. They were like, yeah, all of them. The rest of the timeouts that we have. You know what? Can we take the timeouts from our next game and apply them to this game? Could he kick it Wednesday? Like, the greater the pressure, the higher the likelihood of a choke. And that's become a famous expression, choking under pressure. So when quality is needed, when we have to do our best thinking, procrastination is our enemy. But if you procrastinate the trash, what's the big deal? We don't like it. We need energy to do it, so you wait. So I say that it has its benefits, but if we understand where it also has its downside, then we can start making better decisions as to what we should never procrastinate and what would be okay if you did.
I'm totally going to tell my wife you told me it was okay to procrastinate taking out the trash. So don't be surprised if you receive a phone call from her, a very angry one.
You got it.
Yeah. Okay, so something that most people take for granted, but certainly we should be acutely aware of, is the value of time. So take a moment to describe how we see the value of time in our lives and what it does for us in terms of not only our productivity, but our overall success as well.
Yeah, when you hear this material, you think, well, then I need to spend all of my time with gain. And you can kind of go right to that, and then it becomes gain versus prevent pain. So I mentioned that we use two tools, our to-do list and our calendar. Well, there's a third tool that we use, and that's habits. Habits is when we're on automatic pilot, like your entire morning routine from brushing your teeth to walking out the door. We use habits to execute those tasks. And while we're doing those tasks, we can think about other things. But here's the problem. Those things have to get done. So understanding the value of a minute and understanding that when you delegate, yes, you have to teach the person how to do it. You have to deal with maybe less quality for a while until they master it like you have. So, but that minute, that 5 minutes, that 15 minutes, there's 24 hours in a day. And if we can see every minute for its value, we start to see the decisions that we make that prevent us from going backwards versus how much time do we spend each day in improvement mode? How much time do we take a step back and say, okay, it's time to improve the way we execute. It's time to improve a relationship. No, I don't want to transact anymore. I need to build trust. See, relationships can only handle so many transactions before they need an investment that really shares that I care and I got your back and you can trust me. Because the higher that scale is, then the easier all the transactions are. The business, we look at the systems, the processes we use to improve it, and the time it's going to take to improve the business. And we wonder where that time comes from. Well, it's going to come from two areas. Making sure we have the right ways of executing so that the things that have to get done take less time with less drama. And then when we're executing those tasks, we need to see delegation as a resource to us. Could somebody else do this so I can spend more time improving the business?
Hey, hold on a second. So I want to interrupt you here because I want to talk about interruptions. They are certainly abundant in our world today. A team member comes up with a question, a baby cries, needs immediate attention, a boss has an urgent task that needs to get done, the list goes on and on. So interruptions are killers to productivity. So tell us how we can best manage them, because certainly we can't get rid of them, but how can we best manage the interruptions in our life?
Yeah. So the value of time it's significant. And when we understand the value of it, all of a sudden these interruptions become more annoying to us, right? So I put interruptions into three buckets, right? Every time somebody interrupts you, they want one of three things. They either want you to do something, they want a quick fact or statistic or piece of information, or if they need to have a conversation with you, they want an appointment. So at the end of the interruption, right, you basically end up with a couple things. You either end up with a to-do on your to-do list, an appointment on your calendar, or it's over because it was a quick exchange of information. So the key to managing interruptions is to steer the person who's interrupting you as politely and as courteously and respectfully as possible without harming the relationships. Everything I read on managing interruptions, it harms the relationship. So what we're going to do is just guide the person towards the work, the to-do, the appointment, or the quick exchange of information. So how do we do that? So what is often left out of managing interruptions and when an interruption takes place is what is being interrupted. See, we can't see what's being interrupted if it's knowledge work, right? So my brother Vince is a stonemason. And if I called him right now, I'm telling you, he's brilliant at this. He would pick up the phone and he'd say, I'm in a chimney right now. What do you need? So I know he's working on a chimney. You can see the work. It's physical work that is engaging and you can see what's being interrupted. But when you walk by a colleague in the hallway, you can't see the work I mean, what we think everybody else is doing what we think they're thinking in the hallway is they're whistling to themselves, not thinking one thought. When really what they're thinking is, I got to get this done by 11, I got to have lunch with, and then in the afternoon, I got at 2 o'clock, and I got to make sure I do this before I leave the building today. I cannot leave the building today until I do that task. That's what you're actually interrupting when you walk by them. So what's left out, Darren, of interruptions, and I'll tell you, if you just are aware of this and you watch how much time this saves with interruptions, it's brilliant. When anybody interrupts you, you just state what it is you're doing that's being interrupted. So let's say I'm working on a proposal right now and you pop your head in. And typically, Darren, if you were to interrupt me and I don't know, even in the hallway or you pop into my office, how would you typically start the interruption?
Excuse me, do you have a minute?
Do you have a minute? Okay, right there. That's when I'd say, oh yeah, just working on a big proposal right now. What do you need? So you know, and I know what is waiting and what is being interrupted. I'll tell you, I teach so many tips when it comes to managing interruptions. Darren, that's the best one. You call somebody, they'll answer the phone, they'll say, I'm in the grocery store right now and I'm putting groceries on the belt. What do you need? As long as you know the context of what's being interrupted, and then after our interruption, if you know I was working on a proposal, how would you end the interruption? What would you say?
Thank you very much. I don't know.
I'll let you get back to your proposal. Yep.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Right.
See, now we know how to finish it up, and many interruptions go into chit chat and small talk because we don't know how to wrap it up. But when you know you've interrupted something, it's easy to bring the context back to, hey, I'll let you get back to the proposal. I'll let you get caught up on your emails. I'll let you prepare your presentation. And sometimes people stop by and they just say, hey, no, I was just wondering, how things are going. And I'm like, all right, well, that's nice, but I am actually working on a proposal. So I didn't say anything that wasn't true. So there's no lying involved in this. And I'll say, hey, do you want to grab lunch? Let me finish this up. If it's just chit chat and small talk, if you understand what's being interrupted, then it's easier to avoid the interruption altogether. So if you can steer the person towards the task, towards the appointment, towards the quick exchange of information, then keep the context of what's being interrupted in mind. I'll tell you, it saves a lot of time through every interruption.
I'm just going to use the Vince line. It's like, I'm stuck in a chimney right now. What do you need? Yeah.
I have a client, I work with the Philadelphia Eagles football team, and that's exactly what they say. They use that they say, I'm in a chimney right now and it's smoking. What do you need?
Yeah.
So they don't even describe the work anymore. They've actually adopted the chimney language into their culture. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it'll be even more arresting since I'm not a Mason. So, okay, let's talk about consistency and sustainability of these ideas, because we focus mainly on some of the things that are dealt with on a short-term or daily level. So let's talk about the long-term. Give us your best advice for staying on track when it comes to this gain and prevent pain tasks, prioritization, etc. for a month or even a year from now. How do we be productive with these tools over the long haul?
I have such a passion for this topic and for this industry and Success Magazine. I mean, this is my life, right? I've been in sales for 25 years. I listen to these CDs in the car, and, motivation, discipline, and willpower, like you said, they only last a couple weeks. If we sustainably want to be able to balance and bounce back and forth between gain and prevent pain, it's the calendar. See, the to-do list is all about motivation and discipline and willpower. But the calendar is about structure. So it's my hope that this is not something that lasts for a week or a month, that this lasts through your entire career. Because when we start to get that feeling of burnout, and where does that feeling of burnout come from? It comes from too much maintenance, right? When your brain has over-prioritized the maintenance tasks in your life, and you've fallen into all the traps. Let's get the maintenance done first, and then we'll do gain. Well, that's not achievable because you never run out of the prevent pain tasks. The brain creates a lot of traps that leads us towards our prevent pain tasks. And what snaps us out of that thinking is the calendar. I mean, think about it. It's so hard to go to the appointment. You're like, well, all right, one more thing. It's kind of like how hard it is to go on vacation. You'd think we'd all be dying to go on vacation. But for the first day, we're hanging on to everything at work and home that has to get done. And then by the end of the vacation, we don't ever want to go back and see those things ever again. The brain has a tough time transitioning from one to the other. It doesn't like to switch between gain and prevent pain. So it says, well, let's do the prevent pain tasks first, then we'll do gain, and we never get to gain because prevent pain tasks never end. They're not tasks you can complete, they're tasks that actually repeat. So we have gain in our lives, the prevent pain tasks take less time, less drama, we see them for what they're really worth, and the gain tasks give us the energy to do the prevent pain tasks. So how do we consistently and sustainably have gain in our lives through our entire careers? The calendar. The calendar, the calendar, the calendar. We schedule it, we defend it, and we neglect maintenance while we're working on it. And every time you get that little feeling of I'm getting burned out, I'm getting in a rut, pull out the calendar and start scheduling things that make the have-tos worth it.
Yeah, great advice. Okay, so last question for you today, Steve. I want to make sure that people don't get lost in the flood of information that we've just given them and procrastinate on taking action, even though procrastination in some cases is good. I want to be sure that people leave here with some to-dos that they can follow up on. So wrap things up for us by telling us how we can decide to take action, because all this comes down and back to our choices. So advise us on the power of our decisions when it comes to being our most productive selves and moving forward towards success.
Okay, the first thing you want to do is brainstorm your goals and the things that you want in life. And I've thrown out a lot of ideas, but it's so specific to each person. When I get to the micro level with people about what would make their life better, it's so specific. So gain is not just about bigger, better, more. It's about your life going in the direction you want your life to go. In my workshops, what I have people do, and again, people think this takes a lot more time than it does, is 2 minutes and brainstorm every goal you'd love to achieve. And just no filter, just brainstorm your goals. Then pull out the calendar. That's the next step. See, the most difficult part of a goal is the very first task, because we can't procrastinate. We can't use fear to help us do a goal. So the very first task is the most difficult one. That's what's going to take motivation, discipline, and your calendar to get started. But after you execute the first task, another energy source comes in. See, it's not just adrenaline versus nothing. The other energy source is endorphins. We experience endorphins when we feel a sense of accomplishment. I mean, when does the gym feel good? On the way to the gym or the way back?
Back.
See, that's the problem. It's the way back. If we could get endorphins on our way to the gym, we'd all be going to the gym all the time. Be like, hey, where are you going? I'm going to the gym. You going to work out? No, just going. Like, you can get endorphins on the way there, we'd all be going. You have to get endorphins from earning them. This is why we create to-do lists and check stuff off, because we can see and we can feel a sense of accomplishment. But the endorphins, once you start to move towards a goal, that's when the endorphins rush in. That's when you start to see momentum. Wait a minute. I made a decision that nobody else made me make. See, I think these are the tasks, the gain tasks, the goals that build our self-worth, our self-esteem, our self-identity. I mean, when I'm 100 years old, I'll remember that I wrote a book. Like, these are the things that stay with us. So, but the most difficult part is getting started, because there's no energy to get started, and we can't use procrastination with our goals. So that first task, and then the endorphins and the momentum and the streak that we get on and building that is the most difficult part. Then once we get rolling on that, it gets a lot easier. So yeah, the gain tasks and the prevent pain tasks, they serve their specific notes app in your phone, and just